Hi, I'm Jeff Lasky. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors, NASBAR. It is my pleasure to have Brian Jessen join me here this morning. We saw each other the other day, and I'm like, hey, Brian, can we grab just a few minutes, have a conversation about the market right now and about mortgages, financing, and what the heck's going on out there. And as usual, Brian's always generous with his time for us. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. Yeah, there's some really good topics that we'll touch briefly, and you can always obviously reach out to Jeff and his team and me and my team to get further information, anything that interests you.
Yeah. It looks to me like, the world, and we've been talking about this forever, so maybe everybody's tired of talking about it, but unfortunately the issue still remains, I think, at the heart of our world, inventory, right? And building more houses solves a lot of problems, right? I mean, you'll all of a sudden have people being able to buy houses. You'll all of a sudden have prices stabilizing, right? That's
and you'll have like an equal amount of buyers and sellers instead of this kind of out of whack situation where a lot of people back when we were financing people back in the pandemic era, rates dropped so much in 2021, early 22, they have rates that are just fantastic, right? 2.5, 3, 2.25, 3.5. So they really have no motivation to move out and try to find something that fits them, even in their lifestyles change now, because they're looking at their rate that's really low and they don't have motivation to still to move right now.
And I have a feeling our audience is aware, but I'm just going to remind everybody that where mortgage rates are today, it's terrific. Those are great rates.
So if you look at historically, like say a 40-year thing, they were about 7.45 was the rate over 40 years. Obviously very low 2021, much higher in like the 80s and 90s. But right now, if you're getting a loan, you have decent credit, we work through it to make sure you have decent credit. Rates are probably from the low to mid 5s to like the low 6s. So on a historical basis, we're actually under the 40-year average. So I think that the issue really becomes not so much that the interest rate is what it is the affordability overall between the prices of properties. And Chicago, relative to, we talk to people coming in from the East Coast, the West Coast, they think Chicago is a bargain. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so less expensive than if I'm in New York, New Jersey. I have a daughter in New York, and she works in Manhattan and lives in Manhattan, and she can't afford anything because her rent for a studio is $3,900 a month. So there's no way. So when people coming from the coast, they think we actually are a bargain. But us living here, we've seen the prices go up a lot and nicely, but taxes have also gone up. Cook County's proposing an increase. So people get very stressed out about the affordability of it and what kind of solutions we have as realtors and as lenders to help bridge some of that gap.
Yeah. So from the realtor perspective, this is an area that our partnership are working with Illinois Realtors in terms of government affairs and advocacy. That's where this pays off for us, because this is to a great extent legislative, right? It's talking to the people that they've created these great relationships with over the years, these legislators, and doing stuff, creating
Give an example.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that a lot of people have heard already about the accessory dwelling units, right? The ADUs, right? And being able to statewide, legalize those, add small affordable units, right? That people could more easily.
Or you could have your elderly parents living there, or you could have your kids coming out of college that are trying to save money to get a down payment and buy something. City of Chicago is very pro accessory dwelling units. We have this extra unit perhaps in the back of your property. Another community which you wouldn't typically think would be into this, Lake Bluff, is very interested in expanding accessory dwelling units within Lake Bluff to be able to have people that have their family members, their elderly parents live close by and sort of be cared for or watched over and still be right there in the community of Lake Bluff. So you would think certain high-end communities would be against it, but some are come around to the realization that they want their people to stay in the community. They want them to have their families stay in the community, and it helps economically. It helps all the restaurants. It helps the shops and things around to have people stay in the community.
Right, and that's a relatively faster way, right, of increasing that inventory, right? Because one of the things that we're seeing, I think, still is because of how expensive it is for builders, right, for new construction.
Correct.
So those guys, in case you're wondering why, where's all the new construction, where are all these people at? Well, it's hard for them to afford to build all these new homes when wood is as expensive as it is, steel, whatever it is.
Yeah, and also too, you think like because the building costs have basically almost doubled, the builders are making more money. They're actually not making more money. When I've talked to builders, like, no, we're not making any more money. When prices were 250, 300 square foot, then now they're 400 to 500 or 600 a square foot, depending on how fancy you are. So they're not actually making more money. It's harder for them because they're trying to source out all the materials that you mentioned, all the labor at an affordable rate.
Yeah.
If we have less skilled and unskilled labor in our economy, they're going to have to pay more to keep the people that they have.
Yeah. I think the other thing that we're dealing with that might be able to help, and I think working with our legislators is obviously critical in terms of local zoning ordinances, right?
As an example, like what?
Well, and I'll say it in general because a specific example might not help, everybody in general here, but, when I say the general tenor of these like 20th century zoning ordinances, right, wasn't to make it necessarily easy, right, for certain types of buildings to be built, certain types of residences and places, right? And I think it was a reaction to making sure that, areas were a certain, had certain, okay, so our residential's here and our commercial's here, whatever. But there's a residue from that. There's stuff that just can be loosened up a bit and make it a little bit not only easier to build, but incentivize it for building.
Yeah, even like spots like I think the Motorola site out in Schaumburg, Illinois, and different things where they're actually trying to build like a community within a community where they have different types of housing there. They have transportation lines right there. They have shops and grocery stores and things restaurants right there within this community. So it's almost a self-contained community where you can shop locally, buy locally, be right there for transportation. So those kind of ideas are coming out more and more where people like the fact they have this kind of like close-knit community where they can actually afford a lot of the services and they're right there within where they live.
And one of the ideas I'm not crazy about, but maybe you'll educate me and tell me why I should be, is we've heard about and it's just been floated right now, this 50-year mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And
so it's like a talking point. So a 50-year mortgage would be normally you pay your loan off in 30 years. There's other options as well, but the standard thing, and the United States is the only economy that has something where you fix the rate for 15 or 20 or 30 years. Your rate's guaranteed the entire time you have it, and you can always refinance it if rates get better. So most of the world does have something that's fixed for 5 or 7 years, and you have to renegotiate every 5 or 7 years. So we do have an advantage where you can look at something. When I talk to people about their mortgage payments, over time everybody's income goes up a certain amount. And when you have a mortgage payment, that portion of it, the mortgage never changes. The principal and interest will be the same the entire time you live there, which is comforting because as your incomes go up, you have perhaps more money to afford the taxes and the insurance and things that tend to go up. But a 50-year mortgage would help slightly to get into the property. I would counsel people as their incomes go up to be paying extra because obviously adding 20 years to your loan is a long time. I mean, the amount of people who live in a property 50 years would be very, very small. And it doesn't make that big of a difference. I looked at a $400,000 mortgage, and I did it for 30 years, and then I did the payment over 50 years, and the payment's only 8.5% less on a 50-year loan versus a 30, and you're adding 20 years to the theoretical payoff. Now, if that 50-year kind of gets you into the real estate market, and you realize as your income goes up, you put more towards the principal. So somebody like myself or another mortgage provider should be counseling you at like, don't just pay the minimum of 50 years forever. Start paying more on that loan as your income goes up because you don't want to have a loan that's out for 50 years, but it might actually help a little bit on the affordability. Another trend that Jeff and I talked briefly is I have a client that are getting modular housing built overseas, actually to building standards better than the United States. Like in the Sweden area, so on, they have very high building standards, higher than the United States. So they're actually using those specs from Sweden, building them in South Africa, bringing them here. And let's say as an example, let's say a house, this is kind of on the higher end, but let's say a house costs $1.2 million. with the modular housing, actually built to better standards than us, and the lot and everything. Like they're selling those houses for about $800,000. So for a third less than another house, it's actually built, constructed, and you still dig a foundation. You still put your landscaping in. I mean, it's a really, really solid real estate piece, and you're buying it for a third less. So affordability, if they did that on a smaller scale, where maybe a unit that would cost $500,000 now costs $350,000, that just allows that many more people to get in the real estate market.
I mean, you're talking affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
At that point. And I think it would be short-sighted of us to turn our backs on any ideas, right? Because this inventory issue's been around for a long time already, and we still seem to be years away from digging ourselves out of it. So,
and when you buy stuff, there's a lot of stuff that needs work.
right.
So the thing is, it's not even just buying the house, and there's a lot of misconceptions. So Jeff and I talked a little bit about this. For instance, things online, some of it's very applicable. A lot of it is not. Things like you really only have to have put anywhere from 0 to 5% down. A lot of people have trouble with they can actually afford the payments, but they don't have the money to put down. So you can get gifts from people. You can put a very low amount down. What you would have to get is something called mortgage insurance, which kind of insures a lender in case you default. But that's actually come down a lot. It used to be much more expensive. And then when we're doing a pre-approval for people, the whole thing is a planning process. It costs you $0 to call a solid lender, come up with a plan of action. You may not be buying for several years, but we can work on your credit to get that better if it needs it. We can show you the different programs that are out there. What the good news is, on down payment assistance and grants, which is money that's given to you at closing, those have exploded. The amount of money you can get. And to be a little self-serving here, I work for Wintrust. So we're a bank, we're a mortgage company within a bank. So we have various investors like any mortgage company has that give different incentives for first-time home buyers. And a first-time home buyer is anybody who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years.
Right.
So it's not somebody that's, you could move into the Chicagoland area and you're renting for a while and you've rented for 3 years, you're considered a first-time home buyer again. And Jeff and I also talked back in the day of 30 years ago, the average buyer was 27, 28 years old. Now the average first-time home buyer is 41. So you can see the challenges of people having the money to have the down payment, feeling nervous about what those expenses are in the house or condo or townhouse, and simply maybe even lifestyle, like you're going to move more often, you're going to change jobs more often, but you can still have that real estate appreciating. You can rent it out. After 1 year of living there, you can rent it out. So if you have a job here, you have a job in Dallas or wherever, because I can lend anywhere in the nation, and all of a sudden you get a job transfer, you take a new job, a new career, you can rent that property out if you've been there a year.
Yeah, no, and I say, I don't want to forget to go in that direction, but I wanted to mention one other thing that just everybody, if you don't think about it, remember. So you have a 41-year-old, 41-year-olds buying a house, 50-year mortgage. I'm just putting that out there. And people don't stay in their homes for 50 years typically. We know that. But understand that equity is not building up really until you get towards the end of that loan.
Oh, that's
right?
true. Yeah,
so,
very true.
So I get worried about that part of it. And again, not that it's not a tool, but that everybody just needs to understand what that is,
Yeah,
right?
it's just
And-
talk right now anyway.
Right.
It's not official. But what I usually do, I tell people, look, doing things systematically really helps. Like if you make one extra payment of your principal and interest a year, maybe you get overtime, maybe you have a bonus, maybe you have a second job that's bringing in some extra income. If you make one extra payment of principal and interest, you knock almost 6 years off your mortgage. And if you make 2 payments a year of just the principal and interest, not the taxes, not the insurance, you knock 10 years off your loan. So when I show you how much hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest you save by doing that, people are like, okay, that's maybe manageable. Maybe not the first year, but as I get into this and my incomes go up, I do want to make that extra payment a year. And you can pay it anytime. Maybe, like you said, maybe this summer you make more money, or you get a bonus at the end of the year. Maybe you can devote some of that towards that extra payment or two, and you'll have that loan paid off much faster than you think. And the hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest that you save is basically going in your pocket, too.
Yeah, and that's, again, wonderful advice, right? And that kind of goes to something else we talked about, and that is there's so much misinformation out there about people's ability to buy homes. in terms of, oh, I need this much down payment, or, oh my, this is...
Closing costs are so much.
Right, that kind of stuff. And so what I think would really help our listeners is, let's talk about this for a minute, because I believe that there's a mindset that's changed over the years, that people don't necessarily think about buying homes as a part of, okay, graduate college, get a job, get married, buy a home. People don't seem to be thinking about it that way.
It's not even on the checklist necessarily, because we're never going to be able to buy something, period.
So I want to help our listeners talk about some of the great ways that we can at least convince people that we meet and talk to, hey, look, you really need to talk to Brian or whomever about the advantages. It's just not as tough as you might think, right?
Right. So the down payments are less than you think. If you go online and look at various things that tell you what closing costs are, a lot of times they'll tell you they're 3 to 5% of your purchase price. So let's say you have a purchase price of $400,000. A lot of people think, oh man, I need, just for the closing, I need $20,000 plus my down payment. And in reality, it's nowhere near that. It's probably in the $4,000 to $5,000 range for your closing costs. So that's $15,000 less than you think. So I think talking to a mortgage professional, just having a conversation, there's no commitment to it, it doesn't cost you anything, and going through kind of your current situation, kind of where you're going, what things look like, what are you trying to accomplish, how much is that going to cost, how much you actually need for the down payment and closing costs, and what things you might qualify for. Especially at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of grant money and down payment money. So grant is an outright gift of money to you at closing with no expectation of payback. And down payment assistance, sometimes it's just given at closing, sometimes it's a 0% interest loan, sometimes it's just forgiven over time. So seeing what you're eligible for, and sort of, again, this little self-serving part of this conversation is we're a mortgage company within a bank. So we have the ability to give you the grants and down payment assistance that any mortgage company can give you, but there's some are very bank specific, because we're part of a network called the Federal Home Loan Bank, and they are trying to incent people to buy houses, specifically first-time home buyers. So there's a grant, depending on your income and so on, of $10,000. They're just given to you at closing because we're a bank. So in addition to the other things that are available with mortgage companies. So kind of vetting through that, people are shocked that they're actually going to get that much money to help them out.
Absolutely.
With most of it with no obligation at all, or one with like zero interest charge, or a very small payment if there's even a payment. So just being aware of them is great to kind of change that mindset to say, I'm never going to be able to buy anything, to like, wait a second, this actually might be possible. Maybe I'm not doing it right now because my lease isn't done to the end of August, but yeah, actually, this is actually a possibility that
That's what I love about it.
Make this happen.
Right, so that's what I love about it, is essentially you're going and getting, for lack of a better term, you're meeting with your counselor who's saying to you, okay, here's what you can do now. However, if you're choosing to do this other thing here, here's what you need to do between here and there to get to that point.
And set a specific plan of
Right,
action.
and a
That's
plan of
not that
action.
difficult. Like if you have credit issues, we have a credit repair person we specifically send to because I trust them, and the initial consultation costs you $0. So they're like, yeah, I think we can actually fix some of these credit issues. Supposedly, the number is 67% of people have something on their credit report that they're not aware of.
That they're not aware of.
It could be a negative item. It could be like you have the same name as your father, but you're like a junior or the third, but his stuff is intermixed with you, so you think you have more debt, or it shows like you have more debt. So our job is to see what those things are, and maybe you're like, I didn't know that was the case. There's a gentleman that we're helping that if you looked at the surface, he's trying to buy a condo in the city, and he has 25 lates from his mortgage. But in reality, what happened is there was like a fee of $100 that he wasn't aware of. So every month that he made his mortgage payment, they took that fee out of his mortgage payment. So every month it perceived
like
as a late payment, but he really wasn't. So basically, people were telling him there's no way you're going to get a loan. Your credit score is terrible. But we kind of vetted out what it was. We got the proper documentation. We convinced that other lender to remove those lates. We did a rescore of his credit now that that negative item was gone at our expense. The borrower didn't pay anything for it. Now his credit score goes way up. Now he's eligible for the loan. He's eligible for the best interest rates. And suddenly the whole situation was turned. And that's not always the case for everybody. But if he hadn't made that phone call to us to talk about it, he would never have known that was even possible to get it fixed.
But that's where the importance of, when I say everybody playing in their lane, meaning our real estate professionals, they know what they know about. Bring in people like yourself that know what you know about and can really take people to, places that they may not even imagine would be available to
And they have to be helpful. Nobody wants a salesman-y person. Ultimately, maybe the person that advises you will get a mortgage and write a mortgage for it, but it shouldn't be that intention. The intention should be to help you, inform you, make you say, hey, this may be possible, and have a path to get there. Maybe the path is right now. Maybe the path is 2 to 5 years from now. I've had people that had really tough situations that over a period of 2 to 5 years were incredibly turned around to great situations and mortgages and real estate, and their incomes went up and so on too. So just having someone to talk to that you trust, it doesn't have to result in something immediately. It should be, okay, now I'm much more well informed. I know what actually applies to me. What real estate is possible. I have some realtors that, I'd say, well, this is a really good person that's very good working with first-time home buyers, or they know the area that you're interested in looking at. They might have their ear to the ground about hearing about things as they come up faster than other people because they're very familiar with that neighborhood. So having this group of professionals you really trust is really important, even on the side of, okay, there's a couple insurance people that I know are really helpful, so they'll shop around your insurance for your new place and tell you what's really applicable and how much that should cost. There's people that do tax appeals. If the taxes seem out of whack and the realtor's like, yeah, I think those taxes are a little high, you can appeal those taxes. You get somebody to represent you to get them lowered perhaps. So all those resources of people who've been around for a while can be valuable because they're going to give you people they trust that can help you and give you advice for nothing.
Beautiful. I've got one other topic that I want to touch on with you. And what I run into when I talk to brokers, as you can imagine all the time, I'm always asking, hey, how's it going? And more often than not, everybody's doing great. But when I say from a realistic perspective, what I've been told is that we had a long period of time where people were crazy busy, but not really getting anything out of it or much out of it. And that what there's been is a return to normalcy in the sense of the marketplace has been fairly normal. They've been able to do their showings. They're not running around like crazy people. They're getting business done. That's what I'm being told. Are you seeing that out on the street right now, or?
I think the process of getting a loan is normalized. I think the negotiation things are less frantic.
Right.
You're not signing a contract on the roof of your car.
Right.
But I think the lack of a stable inventory of okay, I think that a metric is usually about 6 months of inventory, and what is the inventory currently?
I think it's
2 to 3 months.
Yeah, no, not even 3 months, right? Yeah, less than 3
So
months.
that's probably the issue. As we do need more building, we do need more houses on the market. Some of it will get straightened out over time because as people age, eventually they're going to move out of their house or condo or townhouse or multi-unit. Eventually, they're not all going to do it at once, so it's going to be a process as people age out and move or downsize eventually, or simply go to assisted living or whatever it is. So that inventory over time, but it could take a really long time. So we do need the incentives you talked about with legislature to build more stock of housing, whether it's ADUs, whether it's modular housing, just affordable options that are out there, but informing people there are things that will help with the affordability. Just to be aware of it is helpful. But I think the market is getting more rational.
Yeah, that's what the feeling is that it's rational, and for those of you out there, one of the things that it's easy to fall into is, and it's not that Dr. Lawrence Yun for NAR, brilliant man, really knows what he's talking about. You can talk about how the country's doing all you want, right? From my perspective, I'm always, and don't get me wrong, I respect the information. It's great to understand it on a macro level. To this day, right? Real estate's still local, man. So
it really is.
You got to pay attention to what's happening in your market, how things are going in your market, and there's so much information nowadays that you can just go pull, whether it's out of the MLS, whether it's on the internet for that matter, however you want to do it, to kind of get a really good handle about what's going on in your whatever.
Yeah, because if you look at the national numbers, they say the inventory is 4 to 6 months. but it's not that way here.
No.
And there's other areas that have even tighter inventory than we have. So it is very local. And the knowledge of the people, whether it's the realtors, the appraisers, the lenders that know the programs that are available in your area or state, is all pretty local.
Yeah, and there are a lot of areas in the country that the prices have not been appreciating. They are here. They're still appreciating here in Illinois. We've been kind of a little bit behind everybody else.
Yeah, we've always been like less crazy appreciation than the areas appreciate tremendously, and less of a decline. So it's a little
Exactly.
smoother, up and a little
smoother.
smoother when there is a flattening out. And I do think if people's incomes are going up 3 or 4% a year, and if real estate's going up 2% a year, over time there's going to be that gap gets narrow and narrow until it's more stable. And you can show people, like, even in a 2 or 3% appreciation of real estate, over time, owning real estate, why that's such a good idea.
Right.
Like, why it's important to do that the loan pays down, the house, even if it goes up a modest amount every year, over time you build a tremendous amount of wealth. And you will have to live somewhere, so you get to live there, enjoy the fruits of living there, but it's actually economically going to make you wealthier over time.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No,
that I
anything else on your
haven't
mind?
mentioned? Well, there's lots of things on my mind. Nothing that we'll mention here other than,
But then reach out to us.
Yeah.
Reach out to NASBAR. They're a tremendous resource. We're sitting here in their studio, and this place is a great resource for you. The staff is fantastic, always willing to help. I'm always willing to help. My staff is willing to help. I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I really just want people to feel like they can trust what we're saying, give them solutions that work for them. It's not a pressury thing. It's not a salesman thing. It's really more of a, let's get you on a path that make sure we answer all your questions. You have the accurate information. You have some ability to now look around at whatever pace you want to buy something that you're excited about
there you
buying.
go, right. And this is a member benefit, sitting right here in the studio. Mike Collins is a tremendous member benefit in and of himself, and he's the guy behind the camera. And if you guys are interested, reach out to technology@nasbar.org if you want to use this
Yeah,
facility.
if he can make me look good, imagine how well he can make you, because you're probably 10 times better at behind the camera,
Right.
in
And
front of
I'm-
the camera than I am.
I'm actually just a hologram. I'm actually not really here. So, Brian, thank you.
Thank you
brother.
very
I
much.
appreciate it,
Terrific.
man.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and please reach out to us. You'll see our contact stuff below. Thanks.